The following tales were first recorded between the 16th and 18th centuries. These stories come from Visits from the World of Spirits or Interesting Anecdotes of the Dead. They are also allegedly true. Let's begin. Story 1. The doctor and his wife, then living with Sir Robert Drury, who gave them a free entertainment at his house in Drury Lane. It happened that the Lord Hay was by King James sent on an embassy to the French king, Henry IV, when Sir Robert was to accompany them, and whose wife remained pregnant in Sir Robert's house. 2 days after they had arrived in Paris, Dr. Dunn happened to be alone in his room, where they had all dined. But in about half an hour, Sir Robert returned again, and as he left so, he found the doctor alone, but with such a bad countenance as such amazed him, insomuch that he earnestly desired the doctor to declare to him what had befallen him in the short time of his absence. To which the doctor was not presently able to make any answer. Since you left me, I have seen a frightful vision, for I have seen my dear wife pass by me in the room, with her hair hanging about her shoulders, and a dead child in her arms. This I have seen since you left me. To which Sir Robert replied, Surely, sir, you have slept since I left you, and this is the result of some melancholy dream, which I would have you forget, for you are now awake. To which Dr. Dunn replied, I cannot be sure that I now live, than that I have not slept, and that I have seen my wife, and that she stopped short, looked at me in the face, and then vanished away. This he affirmed the next day with more confidence, which inclined Sir Robert to a faint belief that there might be some truth to it. Sir Robert then immediately dispatched a servant to Drury House, with a charge also to hasten back as soon as possible and to bring word whether Miss Dunn was alive or dead. If alive, in what condition was her health, etc. On the 12th day, the messenger returned with this account of Mrs. Dunn, namely, that he both found and left her very bad and sick in bed, and that after a long and painful labor, she had been delivered of a dead child, and upon examination, it proved that the delivery had been on the same day Mr. Dunn had saw her apparition in his chamber. Mr. Flavel observes, with great propriety, that the many objections against and disbelief of mankind concerning apparitions and spirits, and of angels too, making their visible appearance to mankind, are chiefly to be found amongst the weak, the fearful, and the profane, who were their eyes not obscured by this veil of flesh, would see a great number of angels and disembodied spirits traveling this terrestrial globe, most of which are commissioned by the great governor of the universe to perform the most friendly and benevolent offices to mankind. How often did Christ himself appear to his disciples after his resurrection to warm, comfort, and teach them many things they were ignorant of. Mr. Baxter, likewise, confesses that his having found so much evidence in Scripture that angels and disembodied spirits hold converse with the inhabitants of the lower world has provided a subordinate help to his belief of enjoying a happy immortality of Christ after the death of the body. Our sublime poet Milton is also of the same sentiment, affirming that millions of spirits walk among the world unseen, both when we wake and when we sleep. These execute their airy purpose, and works of love or enmity fulfill. Story 2. The young man, being servant to a silk mercer in New Street, Covent Garden, was one Sunday entrusted with the sole care of the house. In the evening, having, as he thought, properly secured the place, he ventured out to an evening lecture in the city, where he had not been long present when, by a sudden and unaccountable emotion in his mind, he imagined that all was not safe at the home. At first, he paid but little regard to the intimation, but the idea of a robbery continuing to operate upon his fancy, he was prevailed upon to retire and immediately returned home. On his arrival at the corner of New Street, he discovered the shop door unbarred and half open. On rushing into the shop, 2 men ran past him with the utmost precipitation. He followed fast, cried,
"Stop! Thief!"
and they were taken and conveyed to the watch house. All of the most valuable goods in the shop, to the amount of several £100, were packed up. Several implements of housebreaking were also found on the thieves, and in the shop. The miscreants were committed, tried, convicted, and executed. Justice, having been first moved by an invisible agent who, like the vapor in the brain of King Ahasuerus, the Persian, would not suffer her that night to rest, till 2 old offenders were fast in her hands. The goods of the mercer, happily saved, and the integrity of the shopman vindicated. Story 3. Mr. Weston, of Old Swinford, in Worcestershire, was walking one evening in the summer of 1759 in the park of Lord Littleton at Hagley, and being overtaken by a sudden shower, ran for shelter into a grotto and fled under a spreading oak, under whose shade several cattle were standing. He had not been 10 minutes in that situation before he saw the form of a man pass over the brook, almost close to the shade. Supposing it to be a poor peasant who had long worked for him, he called him by name, but received no answer. With the apparition quickly disappearing, he found his mind much agitated. Regardless of the storm, Mr. Weston withdrew from the place where he had sought asylum to the form which had presented itself to him. That, however, had not the effect desired, but one abundantly more salutary it certainly had. For just as he had gained summit of the hill, on his return to the grotto, a tremendous flash of lightning darted its forked fury on the venerable oak, shivered it to pieces, and killed 2 of the cattle under its boughs. On Mr. Weston's return to Swinford, he found that the death of the laborer was just announced in the neighborhood. He told the story to his friends, who, on the ground of his known veracity, could not well refuse it credit. He saw the body at his own expense, decently interred, and afterwards contributed to the support of the widow, not only by remitting a year's rent for her cottage and piece of land, but also by setting a small annuity upon her till she should marry. We have told this tale simply as it was related by Mr. Weston, and leave the reader to make their own reflections without deciding in this or any other case whether the form that appeared was the soul of the deceased exerting its philanthropy in its flight to the unknown country, or the guardian angel of the soul returning to give up his charge and produce his account at the bar of the Supreme. Thank you for watching. These are just a handful of the tales that I have discovered. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you have tales of your own that you would like to share, or that you would like to hear me read, submit them. My email address is on screen, or in the description. I don't know. I haven't edited yet. Goodbye.